So here we have it, the man of the hour. He started his career in Hawaii, his journalism career. And after 15 years, he moved to Bristol. And after 9 to 10 years from Bristol, he went to LA. Currently, ESPN, co-anchor, Neil, the Hawaiian sensation, Everett, in the house, baby. How are you?
Eddie, I gotta have you're my new agent, man. I gotta have you. I gotta have that introduction. Good to see you. It's been a long time, my friend.
You know, the last time I talked to you, you're such a great guy because I met you at the ESPYs 10 years ago,
Yeah.
right?
That's what I was gonna say. That's what my memory's bad, but I'm pretty sure I met Eddie at the ESPYs.
Here's a picture of you and I right there. Of course, you with your Aloha shirt. I said that right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
we're both looking pretty tight back then.
Oh yeah, and then I said I said, "Are you a man of your word? You really could give me a lecture?" He's like, "Just trust me, call me." I was like, "All right, fine." And you are a man of your word. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm glad to see you got your gig going, and listen, you're a man of many abilities, and this is just one of them. So I knew 5 seconds after I met you, I'm like, this guy doesn't need me to help him out, but I'll help him out.
So you felt that energy, didn't you?
Oh yeah. How could you not?
So Neil, before we talk about currently, let's turn back the clock a little bit. I want inspiring journalists to really get your story, how you accomplished stuff, how many years it took, all right? So when you were a kid, growing up in Washington, right?
At Washington State.
Were you like an athlete? Were you like an all-American athlete? Were you that guy?
I was a good athlete. I wasn't a great athlete. I was a better football player than anything else. I was actually an offensive lineman and a nose guard at 150 pounds. But I was an ornery young man. I had some anger issues, which worked well on the football field. Didn't work well off the field as much. But I always liked to write, Eddie. Mm-hmm. My mom was an English teacher. My stepdad, my dad who raised me, was a basketball coach.
Neil, hold on a minute.
So
hold on. You see where it says Neil Everett ESPN? Your mouth is like in front of it. So if you could fix your laptop, just go a little so I could see you. Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
right
there you go.
That's perfect. Yeah. So you're not covering.
All right.
Yeah, you're not covering your name.
We're doing some directing and everything.
I do this all on my own, my man. Everything's on my own.
Yeah. It's funny because there's a little delay when you're looking at yourself, so I tilt my head and then it goes.
No, you're fine because if it's delayed on my end, then there's a problem. Mm-hmm. But on your end, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
All right.
So you were saying you had anger issues. Go ahead.
Yeah. Listen, I was a pretty good student. I went to college. I went to Oregon. I got my journalism degree. I worked on the Oregon coast in a radio station for a year. Then I moved to Hawaii and I worked at a radio station in Maui. Then I became a sports information director at Hawaii Pacific University. Needed more money to be able to make it in the 808. So at night I worked in television as a kind of a copywriter for your local news station, your 10 o'clock news. And that just kind of morphed into me doing sports. And eventually that led to the whole ESPN audition, which is a story in and of itself.
Well, so when you were like 16 years old right there, you were acting like a goofball already, right? There was goofballism in you?
That's my little sister, Megan, right there, who worked for Nike for 30 years. And she's the hero of the family.
30 years for Nike? Damn.
30 years for Nike.
Did she charge you for the sneakers or any attire?
No, she did me all right.
So when you were in high school, were you like a very good athlete, or what was your goal when you were a kid? When I grow up, what did you want to do? Because I
wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a writer at Sports Illustrated.
Oh wow! So that was
my goal. At first I wanted to be a veterinarian, and then I realized all the animals didn't live, and I couldn't handle that because I got a soft heart. So once I realized all the animals didn't live. That's my high school graduation picture. I had some good hair going then, boy.
Still got good hair. Who are you kidding, man?
Yeah. And then I wanted to be a writer for Sports Illustrated, but then I just kind of bounced around at college, and the bottom line is I never dreamt this job. I never dreamt this life. And I'm very, very blessed to have that I intersected with ESPN, and it changed everything for me. But I don't take any of it for granted. I don't believe I deserved any of it, but I'm very pleased it happened.
So after Oregon, right? The Ducks. You graduate from
Yeah,
Oregon. Now, it's usually when people graduate from college, exactly, the big O. Usually when people graduate from college, I remember some guy told me, hey, welcome to the unemployment world, right? So once you graduate,
right.
how did you get that job? Did you work at a station in Oregon?
The first job that I got was the Oregon Coast was opening a radio station. I sent them my resume. I had interned in college at a couple radio stations and a couple TV stations while I was at U of O. I sent them my resume. I got hired. I think it was $600 a month, and I was like, "Yeah." And
600 a month?
600 a
Well,
month.
what
That's
year
what I
was
lived.
this?
1984. No, 1984.
Oh my God. But then you were also bartending at night, right?
Bartending at night, yep, and news then booze. That's how we did it. And I did that for a year. I moved to Maui because one of the stations I'd interned for, the guy who owned it, owned a station on Maui. So I went over there and I was able to get some work with them. I also laid wallpaper as we were refurbishing hotels, and I must have done a couple other gigs I can't think of right now, but I mean, I was up all night. You worked back in those days, you worked 60, 70, 80 hours a week, man. You grinded. Uh, and then there was a job in the newspaper. That's back when they had classified ads for all you people out there who wonder what the hell I'm talking about. The newspaper is where you found a job because there was no internet. Internet hadn't been invented yet.
So it actually
And there
said
was
help wanted?
Yeah, it was the help wanted ad, classified ads. Yeah. So, and there was a job at Hawaii Pacific College, it was called, and it was for the sports information director. It paid $18,000 a year. And I flew over from Maui to Oahu. I interviewed for the job. They said, we'll call you later today to tell you. Well, hell, this was before cell phones, and I didn't have a phone on the island because I lived on a whole nother island. So they said, what number can we reach you at? And I said, hold on. Went down the stairs, went outside to the mall. The school was in a mall setting. I found a payphone. I took the number of the payphone down, went back up to the secretary and said, I can be reached at this number. I stood by that phone for several hours. And around just shortly before 5 o'clock, they called me. That phone rang, and I picked it up. They said, "Yeah, we're going to offer you this job." And I said, "Fabulous." And I flew home to Maui and packed my stuff and moved back to Oahu. And I worked for Hawaii Pacific for 15 years. And about 5 years into that gig is when I started working television on the side, and those jobs kind of morphed. Some days I'd be more Hawaii Pacific, some days I'd be more television. I had really understanding boss at Hawaii Pacific. They realized it was good exposure for them if one of the TV guys was a Hawaii Pacific guy. So I worked both gigs, and that led to the ESPN interview eventually.
So, but you were working actually. The TV happened accidentally, right? Because you were working behind the scenes with production and editorial, right? And then,
Yeah, what happened, Eddie, was one week at the TV, they realized that, let's say it was Tuesday, and they said, "Hey, they had two sports guys. One was sick and the other was on vacation." And they realized they didn't have anybody to do the sports that weekend. And the news director looked over at me and he said, "Hey, Neil, don't you do a sports job?" And downtown, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a sports information director," which for people out there who don't know what that is, that's basically you're the PR guy for the athletic department. So
so
it's a lot of writing
right, right.
and a lot of stats and all that, but it's not on camera. It's not anything like that. It's more public relations. And I said, "Yeah, I'm the SID at Hawaii Pacific." And the guy, Paul Udell was his name, and he said, "You're going to do the sports this weekend." I said, yeah. And I still have the tape on
Oh
a
man.
3/4 inch tape. And I mean, I looked like such a cheeseball, Eddie. I had the biggest smile on my face. And because it was my first show, I was draped with leis on the air. And I never forget, Paula Akana was the news host, and I was the sports host. And Terry Murphy was the stage director, and Cameron Kelsey was on the camera. And I did my 3.5 minutes of sports, and that's how it all began.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I mean, were you nervous? Were you like, oh my God, I'm on camera? And, because
Yeah, you know what, Eddie? I think I was so dumb enough that I didn't even know how nervous to be. I was so excited, and I had moved to Hawaii in large part because my mother had died, and so I was kind of running away from the reality of having to deal with that on the mainland. And so I think that was probably. I think my mom had from above had her hand on my shoulder and was kind of a calming influence on me, and so it was meant to be, and it turned out okay.
wow, well, I'm so sorry about that, Neil. I'm
Yeah,
sure your mom was one hell of a lady raising you,
yeah.
and but tell me about this guy right here. This guy, I like what he told you. This guy right here, Tony.
Tony Salito. Tony
Yeah.
was the guy that I just mentioned, who I had a boss at Hawaii Pacific who was very accommodating. That's the man I was talking about, Tony Salito. He's a legend in Hawaii. He just got off the phone with him the other day. He's 83. He's as closely. I'll get choked up talking about him, but I love him to death. When I say I was bedecked in leis on the air, that's what I mean. For you people who wonder what I'm talking about. So when I was on TV, that first show, I had all these leis. I had twice as many leis on. Tony coached at Hawaii Pacific. We won a national title at the NAI level in 1993. Great guy, great mentor, great friend. Uh, and he allowed me to do both jobs. And what's interesting, what pushed me more into television, Eddie, is that Hawaii Pacific was an NAI school.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means, for people out there, that means it's a non-scholarship school. It's not related to the NCAA, which most people are more
Mm-hmm.
familiar with. Well, I can't remember what year it was. I'm going to say it was about 96, maybe. Hawaii Pacific decided it was going to go NCAA Division II, which is your 1AA in football, NCAA Division II in basketball, and all that. Well, when you go NCAA, then you've got to have something that they call a compliance officer to make sure that the staff and the coaches and the players are following NCAA rules, which people hear about. So Tony calls me into his office and says, "Hey, we're promoting you." I said, "What?" I got my job down. I got the SID job down. I can do it in my sleep.
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
doing it for, the 10 plus years. And he says, "Yeah, you're going to be the compliance officer." I said, "I am?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." Well, that's the worst job in the world. I mean, that is such a thankless job. And so a year into that job, I realized, you know what? I gotta concentrate on this television thing a bit more. If they were like this before, let's see if I can put this on the screen. If they're like this before, I gotta change them like
Right,
this.
right, right.
And I gotta make the TV be more important. And I could do that with the compliance job, because the compliance job, I didn't really have to be around that much. Plus my motto was everybody's eligible until further notice. So
Neil,
uh,
like your life, it's like you kept your life so simple, and it's like, all right, if it happens, it happens. I'm just gonna focus on the present, and look what happened.
yeah,
I mean, it's a hell of a
yeah.
story. But Tony told you a great quote. I'm gonna do it in a voice. Maybe did he sound like this? He
Tony's from Jersey.
All right. So did he say like, don't ever say something about someone you would never say to their face?
Yeah, you know what? That's the first day of the job. We were walking over for his introductory press conference.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me that, Eddie. He didn't sound like that, but you got the quote right. And I live with that to this day. And when I'm on television and I think I want to crack on somebody, I say to myself, would you say that if they were standing in the studio? Would you say Kyrie Irving was awful tonight? You know what I mean? Would you say that if Kyrie Irving was standing there? Well, I would if he went 2 for 15.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because even Kyrie Irving would say, I was awful tonight.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but if you want to crack on somebody, you better be willing to crack it to their face, and assuming everybody, that you're talking to reasonable people. If they're thin-skinned and they're gonna get on you if you just look at them funny, well then that's a whole nother conversation. But I've remembered what Coach told me, and to this day I'd like to think that I've held true to that more often than not. I know I've held true to it more often than not. I hope I've held true to it 90+% of the time, if not 100%.
But Neil, you being a sportscaster, right? I mean, for instance, has it ever happened that athletes would be like, "Hey, man, why'd you say like I did this or something like that?" Did that ever happen? No.
No, it never has, and I think that's part of because of that philosophy, and also because I don't engage with people like in social media and things like that.
Right.
I'm not engaged in any of that.
Yeah. All right. So Tony was your mentor. He actually beat prostate cancer too. I read on that, so that's
Oh,
great.
you did some serious homework.
Listen, Neil, I don't mess around. All right. When I interview
He
my
also,
guests, I want to know
he's, al-
everything. I gotta go.
he's also a stroke survivor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, so this guy was like your father figure type, right?
very much so.
All right. So now, 15 years in Hawaii, right? A guy named Brendan Murphy, right?
Yeah,
Tell me
I
about
just
this guy.
talked to him this morning.
Okay, so Brendan Murphy, he's working out at a gym in New York, in my hood, all right? So then what happened? Tell me that story.
The way Brendan told it to me was he was working out on a treadmill or something. The guy next to him, he starts a conversation with him. By the way, Brendan Murphy's a very accomplished artist right now. If you Google his name,
Oh, okay.
from Rhode Island, played basketball, played for Tony at Hawaii Pacific. Hell of a 3-point shooter. So Brendan's working out with a guy, and he starts and the guy's an agent or in the television business or something, and he says, "Hey, you got to check out my guy in Hawaii, Neil Everett." He goes, "He's really funny. He's really good." And so the next thing you know, I think this guy talked to an agent, and this guy called me up, and he says, "Hey, I want to talk about representing you." And I'm like, I don't need representation. I got a job in Hawaii and I'm not going anywhere. So we had a conversation, and at the end of the conversation, I said, I'll tell you what, you get me an interview at ESPN and we'll talk. And he said, "Will you send me a tape?" And I sent him a tape, and I don't know how long, a month later or whatever, he called me up and he says, you got an interview at ESPN. I said, "Well, then I guess you're my agent." And, we have a lot, we don't have full control, but we have a lot of control on how much we want to dream in life. And so when I said, "Get me an interview at ESPN," that was something I'd never dreamt of. I'd watch Dan and Keith and those guys, and I was your local sportscaster, but I never saw those as linear things. They had their thing, I had my thing. Those two things weren't related to me. Like the guy who's the mayor doesn't imagine being the president, I don't think.
Right.
But had I not said that to him, I'd still be in Hawaii. My life would be great. It'd just be different. But I said that to him, and so then they flew me out there for the interview, and I bombed, Eddie. I was horrible because I hadn't done any home.
Okay, so hold on a minute. I know you bombed, but here's what I want to know. What did they exactly ask you to do at the audition? What did you have to do?
Basically, just watch a SportsCenter show, only 15 minutes of one, solo.
Okay.
Just that's it. Yeah, type it up, hey, welcome to ESPN SportsCenter. I'm Neil Everett.
Mhm.
Tonight in baseball, it's the Yankees and Rays. And, I sounded like, Doogie Howser back then. Um, so you write your own thing and you do it. And my problem, and then, they gave me, games. Hey, you're going to do the White Sox and Cleveland, and you give you a shot sheet. Well, back in Hawaii, I wasn't doing the White Sox in Cleveland. I wasn't doing it. The only Major League Baseball I was doing was Benny Agbayani on the Mets.
Hawaiian.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and I was doing. I went to Japan to cover sumo. I went to Tahiti to cover long distance canoe paddling. I did a lot of local. I did local sports. I did surfing, and I did local high school basketball. But I didn't care about Cleveland and Chicago. Because anybody who cared about Cleveland and Chicago could watch Sports Center and find out
Right.
about Cleveland
Right.
and Chicago. I had 3 minutes. I'm not going to spend any time on Cleveland and Chicago. Nobody in Hawaii cares about Cleveland and Chicago.
Right. Right.
So when I went back there and they gave me Cleveland and Chicago, and they gave me some names of some people, I was like, whoa. Like, I'll never forget Juan Encarnacion. I could not spit that guy's name out. No, I'm like, what? I got the Juan part. I wasn't that dumb, but I mean, I just, I mislabeled ballparks. I was horrible. I mean, and I knew I just I was a stuttering fool.
But Neil,
And so,
while you were talking, right, while you were doing it, were you in your head saying, "My God, I am messing up so bad right now. This is the
oh,
worst." Right? You were saying that to yourself.
oh, Oh, I was like the witch in Oz when they threw the water on. I'm melting. I'm melting. Yeah, I mean, and then I came out. It was one of these where everybody went, good job," and they'll show you the door, and it was just, yeah, I was brutal.
Neil, you know what they do at auditions when they say "good job"? It's the enemy
Yeah,
of great. Remember
yeah,
that.
there you go.
It's the same
Yeah,
thing in acting. When you good job, you're like, yeah, all right, I sucked, I
yeah,
choked. So all right,
yeah,
so now you leave. Was it at Bristol? You had to fly in for that audition.
yeah. I flew into Hartford, yeah,
Okay.
and then I went back to Hawaii, and I knew I'd blown it, but that was wasn't the end of the world. I still had a good job, and I lived in the 808. And a year later, it was a full year. That agent called back and said, "Hey, they want to give you another shot. They saw something." And I said, "Oh, thank you." That was my mom. My mom was looking out for me,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I flew back and basically did the same thing, had the same setup as the first time. So there were no surprises. Obviously the scripts were different and the games were different.
Hmm.
And this time I killed it. I crushed it. Boom.
Like
I'm
you
like, they're going to
pronounced
hire me.
everything. You pronounced
Oh God,
everything.
I was
Yeah.
smooth. I was, I was as good. I felt like,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you hit
yeah.
it,
Oh yeah,
you
hell yeah.
know, yeah,
Yeah,
it's like,
your
oh
emotions
man.
come naturally. Nothing is
Oh,
forced, right? You're having fun.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you just want to go, how good was I? Except you don't want to be that cocky.
Well, of course.
Uh, and so everybody was like, great job. And I'm like, yeah, I know, wasn't it? And
Well, didn't I say enemies the good is the
uh,
enemy of
uh,
great? There you go.
yeah. And I left and I never heard from him again. And it was an entire year again.
Oh God.
Then that agent called me up and said, "Hey, they want you. Can you be there in 2 weeks?" And I said, "I can be there in 2 months because I'm partying on my way out of Hawaii." And 2 months later, I was in Connecticut, and that's 21 years ago.
And there you are in
Yeah,
2000. When you got the call, where were you, Neil, exactly? Like, when I interviewed Freddie Coleman from ESPN Radio at night in New York, he said he was on a
yeah.
highway and he got the call and he just stopped and he just celebrated, screaming out. You know what I mean? Where were you when you got the call?
I was inside my house on Kailua, Oahu. I can remember exactly where my phone was because again, this was before cell phones. Phone was on the wall, and I remember, and I go, "Whoa, I'm moving," which was scary though because I was moving from Hawaii to Connecticut.
Hmm.
And I didn't really want to leave Hawaii. So, but I had, it was too good a job to turn down.
But Neil, now think about this, right? I mean, I grew up in New York, the storms, the winter, right? You get that call, and it's like, okay, you got the job, you're coming to Bristol now. Were you thinking in your head when you hung up the phone, oh my God, from the lovely beach, from the lovely weather to a shitstorm? You know what it's like out here.
Well, see, I didn't know what it was like because I had no East Coast experience. So I was not prepared for the change of climate. I was more anxious about the about leaving my home.
Hmm.
Hawaii. I had been there 15 years, and to this day, even though I've been away 20 years, it's still what I call home. So we all have a place we call home. You could be in LA
Yeah,
for 100 years. You're still a New
New
Yorker.
Yorker. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. So you know what I mean. So I've been out here for 20 years. I am not a Southern Californian. Um, but so that was my anxious moment with the people that I was going to have to say goodbye to because I was familiar with the distance. This was not going, this was not a 4 or 5 hour airplane flight anymore. This was the other side of the country, a place I'd never spent any time at. So, but I learned in a hurry about the weather because you don't have to be back east long to know. I remember it rained all July, and I was living in a hotel room and this was my stuff hadn't made its way out yet. I had to buy a place to live, and I remember thinking I'm not staying. I think I'd been out like 1 month, and I remember my uh, uh, kind of Tony's best friend, who became kind of my godfather. Tony was my great godfather. I called up and I was kind of whining, and Clay Benham is his name, and he said, "You're not coming back here. There's nothing for you back here." And I said, okay. So I stuck it out. And actually, after my first contract, which was 3 years, I told ESPN I was done and I was going back to Hawaii because I had a job set up back in the TV in Hawaii. Uh, and then at the last second, Eddie, I thought, you know what, this might be a bad career move. And so I stayed, and that would have been a bad career move. Although, again, going back to Hawaii is never a second choice. It's just another choice.
Right, right. Well, I mean, it's not that far from LA. I mean, you think about it.
Oh, now for sure. Oh yeah, when they opened the LA office, I'm like, hello, I'll go.
Yeah, exactly. So
Although,
hold
oh,
on.
you know what?
Go
That was
ahead.
tough too because after 10 years in even if people knock on Bristol, Bristol's not nearly as bad as everybody says. But after being back there for 10 years, I had made a lot of dear friends. And so I knew when I left for LA that I was saying goodbye to those people the way I said goodbye to the people in Hawaii. I didn't have the affection for the land like I did in Hawaii, but I did have the affection for the people.
So you started with ESPN as a ESPN News, right? That was your job.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
now, well, with ESPN News, give me the schedule. You wake up in the morning, then what? What time you report to work? What do you have to do? Talk to me about the schedule.
I think the show that I usually did was 6 to 8 o'clock.
Is that
John si- Night.
at night?
John
Okay.
Seibel and I did the 6 to 8 a lot, and so I think we got in there at noon. I think we had a noon meeting. So you get in at noon, and and so it's no different than now. Now we go on at 10 o'clock at night, so we get in at 4 o'clock, and we have a meeting. And I mean, it's a little different now because it's all Zoom because of the pandemic. But
Hmm.
remove the pandemic from the equation, and you have a meeting. You talk about ideas. Hey, we got this. This happened last night. This is happening tonight. I remember just the other day, to put it in today terms, they were talking about, well, we got the Lightning and the Hurricanes game two, and then you're gonna talk with Barry, and I'm like, okay, great. And then afterwards, you can ask Barry a question about the game, and I'm like, I don't want to ask Barry a question about that game. I don't ask Barry a question about Toronto because everybody was still talking about Toronto collapsing against Montreal, and I didn't want to talk about Toronto collapsing against Montreal on the ice. I wanted to talk about what it's like to be from Toronto. to that's your team,
Right.
and that's
Right.
been your team because Barry played for Toronto.
Right. Right.
So I said, put me in that city. What's it like, to have that team fail
Yeah.
again? And he said it's like if the Yankees were no
Yes.
good
Yeah.
anymore.
That he
He
said that
said
last
that
night.
they
Yeah.
yeah, that's what it yeah. So he said that's what it's like. They used to be really good and now they can't win anything. And the people don't even necessarily want them to win the cup. They just want them to win a series.
Right.
And so those are the types of things that you talk, that come to fruition when you have a quote unquote team meeting before a show.
But Neil, you know what I like about you? You're like the point guard. You give them the assist. You're like, here you go. You just one question, let them take over. It's all about the
Yeah,
other.
you know what? Because I don't think people are watching to hear me talk about Toronto. They're watching to hear Barry Melrose talk about Toronto. And then and you'll see sometimes people who sound like they're trying to impress you with all they know about something while they're asking somebody a question.
Right. Right.
Instead, Doc, what happened in the first half? Instead of, Doc, your team went 2 for 17 to end the first half. You're down by 30. It's the biggest deficit the Clippers or the 76ers have ever faced in a playoff game since 1962. And the Nets have never lost a 30-point lead ever in the history of the franchise, dating back to when they were in the ABA. What are you going to do? Instead of, Doc, you're down 30. What are you going to do?
Exactly. Yeah. Simplicity. Yeah. That's what I believe in, man. That's. I do
Yeah,
the same thing with my guests. I'm like, let them talk, man. It's not about
yeah,
me. It's about you. All right. So
yeah.
now, what happened in Bristol? What was the agreement? Like, hey, let's put Neil as our ESPN LA guy. How did that happen?
Well, they just, they opened it up. And they said, anybody interested, come visit and talk about it. And Stan and I did the best talking, I guess. And when you kind of looked at the roster of Sports Center anchors, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I, you know, you knew Dan Patrick wasn't going to go. You knew that Scott Van Pelt was East Coast. Stu Scott was North Carolina. Steve Levy was New York and Boston. Linda's New York. John Anderson's Midwest, but he had two young kids, and that's a better environment to raise your kid. So you're
Mm-hmm.
going down. You're going to Bucci is a Pennsylvania East Coast guy. So kind of going down the list, and you're going like, okay, I'm right. We're about down to my name on this list here. So all right, I'm gonna go, and Stan and I were, we pretty much started at about the same time. So it worked out well for both of us.
But you opened up the show with this legend, may he rest in peace, right? You opened up
Yeah,
the show
that's
with him,
right.
right?
The first night it was me and Stu and Steve Lavin, and it was actually Stu and Steve Lavin because I think it was the national championship game that year. Yeah, it must have been because it was a Monday night, and those games are on Monday.
Oh
So
nine, right?
Stu, say that again.
Was it 2009 that you guys opened up in LA?
9 or 10, yeah.
Oh,
You
okay.
know what? 2009 or 2010 because
Right.
if it's 21 now. Um, but yeah, so it was me and Stu, and then Stu did the game with Steve Lavin. The next night it was Stu and Stan. So Stu had a big enough personality and a big enough presence that it was good. Like you bring out a certified cleanup hitter to open your new venue, you're gonna draw more eyes, and it's gonna add some more legitimacy to it. So yeah, it was a nice way for us to begin our run here.
You know what I like about the ESPN is the commercials. How much fun do you guys have with that? I mean, seriously. I was like, I wish I could be there just to see that. There was one, you
Mm.
guys were breaking plates. You just dropped
Oh,
plates. Do you remember that
that was
commercial?
with Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yes. So I want to know how many times did you guys break plates at that time? You know what I mean?
Um, yeah, they run those. We do a lot of takes. I was probably 10 takes. I'm gonna say
So
that one
after,
was that was Stephen A. Smith's first ESPN commercial too, I believe.
oh, okay. But you had a commercial with the tennis star. What's his name?
Roger Federer.
Yeah. That was so funny. Like, am I the top 10?
I'm
Right?
in the
Tell us
top 10,
story.
Roger. Yeah. Yeah.
So now when you have the commercials, how many hours does it take to like finish it?
Oh, they're 6 hours, just,
Mm-hmm.
shooting scenes from a movie for a
Right.
15-second shot, and it takes
Oh
how long
God.
to do it? It's so funny. When I went back to Hawaii after I started doing SportsCenter, I'm like, hey, I'm on SportsCenter. They're like, yeah, great. Hey, when are you going to do a commercial? That's all anybody wanted to know. When are you going to do a commercial? When are you going to do a commercial?
Mm-hmm.
So that is the first commercial that I ever starred in. That one right there. And so, and Federer's still playing.
Yeah,
Federer
yeah.
still looks about the same, but geez, I didn't have any gray hair back then, and that's all I got now.
Well, Neil, they say that salt and pepper is sexy now, as you can
Huh?
see. And I want to know how you met this beauty queen.
Oh,
Did you hit on her or did she hit on you? Let's get the facts right now, my man.
there's the love of my life right there. That's my wife, Stephanie. I still have that shirt too. It's in that closet right there. That's a vintage Aloha shirt right
Oh
there.
yeah, I see that.
That picture, I think might be from Van Pelt's wedding even.
Mm.
Stephanie was worked in Oregon for a nonprofit. My uncle was one of her volunteers. I was the speaker at their big fundraiser. My uncle said, "I want you to meet this gal," and that night I planted a kiss on her, and I said, "Man, I got to be able to plant another one on her." And that was 13 years ago. We've been married 8 years, and she's the best thing that's happened to me.
Now, did she go to Oregon too or no?
She did go to Oregon. She's quite a bit younger than I am.
Okay, well, I told you the salt and peppers helps. I told you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Anytime somebody says, "Did you guys go to Oregon the same time?" I look over at her and kind of smile, like, "Yeah, yeah." She just shakes her head, like, "Oh, Jesus."
And you guys both live in LA, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
how many dogs you have?
We have 2 dogs and 2 cats.
And now I remember when I met you, you lived in Venice.
I
Yeah.
did, and I lived in Venice, and then and I lived in Mar Vista, but we bought this house about right before we got married, so 8 years ago.
Well, God bless you. Look at you, Neil. You're living the life. I mean, think about it.
Uh,
When
well, listen,
do people come up to you like they're like, "Hey, aren't you that guy on TV talking about sports?" Do you get that a lot?
well, listen, it's a little tougher when you're like this, so
Yeah, but on
that makes it,
TV, it's off, isn't it? All right,
yeah,
before the pandemic.
yeah, it happens on occasion, but LA is full of
I know.
C-list dudes like myself,
Oh, are
so
you kidding me? You see
uh,
this? Hell no. People dream to have your job. But Neil, it takes years to have that good improvisation skills. You know how be like, what it just comes out of you, right? When you talk about a highlight, and all of a sudden, and I can
mhm.
see Verrett laughing, and then you're laughing at what he says. You guys have great chemistry.
Well, we've been together for 11 years, so I love the guy, and if you can't figure out how to get it done after 11 years, you're probably not have figured it out. And I think we figured it out from day one. I think um, Stan has made me better at my job, and I think I've made him better at his because we've taken things from each other that I see what he's strongest at was what I was not strongest at, and vice versa. And I think that I don't think any. I think if they're keeping track somewhere, I don't think anybody's ever done more sports centers together than the two of us. Because we've been doing it.
More than
I
Oberman
think
and
I,
Dan Patrick.
I don't think Dan and Keith were together. I don't know how many years they were together, but we've been doing it 11 years. I think they were. I have no idea, but I don't think they were together as many years. And so if you take it 5 nights a week or how many nights a week, I think we probably win that race. So we're not winning that race for
Right, right.
popularity or something like that, or those guys raised the level. Everybody's raised the bar for all of us, and kind of opened the door for all of us, along with guys like Chris Berman and Bob Lee and guys like that. But yeah, we've been doing it for a long time.
And you guys have a blast, right? I mean, Neil, do you actually call this work? I mean, come on, man. You wake up, sunny LA. You know, you go to work at
Yeah.
what time? 4 p.m. You got to be there by 4.
Yeah.
So you figure
Yeah.
you leave 3 p.m. from your home, right?
Yeah.
You get to work, tape 1 hour, and then it just repeats, and then you go home.
Well, it's a little different than that because since we're the closed show.
Mm-hmm.
That 1 hour, like last night we were on for 2.5 hours because we came on at 9 o'clock, and 9 o'clock was live, and 10 o'clock was live, and you're the show of record, so you've got to wait. So when the Padres are going 17 innings, you're going 17 innings with them. So it's not one and done, but I'm also not complaining at all. It's been like I said at the beginning of this, it's it's been a great it's been a dream. It's been a dream, not a dream job, but it's been a dream.
But people have been coming up to you and saying, "Listen, I would kill to get your job." Right? I mean, think about it. I mean, you know, they ask you,
Well, yeah, yeah,
but you're
yeah,
so humble about it. Look at you, I'm like, "Yeah, I love this job, man." Come on now. Are you listen? Are you close with Neil? I'm sorry, with Stan. Are you close with him? Like,
yeah.
you guys go out for dinners, like your wife and his girl or his wife, whoever. You guys do that?
No,
No.
no. But if I got busted and I had one phone call, he'd be the guy I called.
Oh,
So
all
he'd
right.
do anything for me. I'd do anything for him. But he lives downtown. We're Felix and Oscar for people who know the Odd Couple. We are. So uh, but that doesn't mean Felix and Oscar aren't dear friends
Right. That's
because we
true.
are. We are. And it's not that we don't hang out because we hang out because we're together so much. It's just we have different interests. Stan's a golfer. I'm not. Um, I'm a water guy. Stan's not. I'm
Okay.
an animal guy. Stan's not. Um, he lives downtown. I live by the beach. But yeah, but listen, I hang out with him every day, and I got no complaints. I love the guy to death.
Right.
I can't.
Well, who are you close with your colleagues, even across the nation? Like, if, like, let's say Scott Van Pelt comes in town, do you hang out with him, have dinner, or anything like that?
If he calls me,
Okay. If he calls you, what's he big leaguing you now?
no, I love Van Pelt. I mean, him and I. He. You know, it's like I learned to be a better journalist from Stan, watching Stan work. I gained a different level of confidence working with Scott Van Pelt. Um, so and those are things that you really appreciate about someone that you admire them enough that you are taking some of what they do and incorporating it into what you do because you think they do it so well. Nobody's taking a negative from somebody incorporating it, at least not consciously. So I love Van Pelt. I went to his wedding. He's a I consider him a dear friend, and he's the last guy I said goodbye to in Bristol, and we hugged it out, and I had a lump in my throat.
Wow. So when you got to Bristol, like, I'm going to talk about that a little more. Who took you
Yeah.
under your wing?
I'll tell you what, the first guy who took me under his wing was a guy named Jim Frazier, and Jim was a Sports Center anchor, and he did a lot. He did some NBA stuff and ESPN News, and talented guy. And he actually lives in Venice, and he's a fantastic musician. He's kind of does a little bit of everything. But he left ESPN to go to move back to Sacramento because
Mm.
of family obligations. So he wasn't there that long, but I've remained in touch with him. But he was the first guy. He was the first guy. He's better to tell the story because so I show up in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't realize that for 30 days they're just going to have me shadow people there to kind of see how the job's done. I thought I was getting there and going on TV the next day. So like all I packed was like, one suit and my shorts and my t-shirt, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I wear my shorts and t-shirt when I'm not wearing my suit. And so every day I'd show up at work with my, I didn't put a tie on, thank God. I wasn't that nerdy, but I showed up in my suit every day. And so these guys are all looking at me like, who is this dork? And I also carried like a satchel full of newspapers because this is kind of pre-internet still. I mean, internet had just come out, I think. And I do a lot of homework with newspapers, and I still get the LA Times delivered. And so, I'd have all my newspapers for my notes, and I'm kind of an odd duck. And so I think Jim saw me as an easy mark to kind of bust my balls, but we became good friends. So I think listen, Kenny Mayne has become a dear friend. Eddie, I'm doing a show with Kenny Mayne. I'm doing a show with Stu Scott. I'm doing a show with Dan Patrick. I'm sitting there going like, I'm doing a show with Dan Patrick. Like I'm still, I'm still the guy on the couch at home watching the show.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I'm doing the show. And to this day, I still can't believe I'm that guy, because I remember what it was like to watch those guys, and to have Kenny Mayne call me up and, be talking to Kenny Mayne, and he's a dear friend. And I'm like, wow, how lucky have I been? How blessed has my life been that this is that
Well,
look at me, my work is play.
It's back to your mom again. That's where
Must be.
It has to be. And I mean, look, here's what I want to know. What's your take on my New York Knicks tonight? I mean, I have a feeling Julius Randle's going to score 35 tonight, and we're going to win.
Boy, he's got to get it going. I think they can win tonight. I just don't know if they can win in Atlanta. They didn't show like they had any. They got to be able to win one in Atlanta, and I don't know if they can. I would think they'd win tonight. I think that crowd. I mean, that crowd minus that one yayo, that crowd was spectacular for those first two games.
Neil, you know what? It's like when I see crowds, just not the Knicks, but hockey crowds, with the exception of Canada. But I'm just saying, I'm like, oh my God, it's coming back. It's normalcy again. You know what I mean? It's like, holy shit. Yes, please. Do you feel that too when you see the crowds, the highlights?
Well, it really reminds you of what's been missing, and it also gives you another layer of appreciation for these athletes playing in the bubble. And, granted, they still get it, people have gone through a lot worse things than the athletes having to play in a bubble. But for what they do on a nightly basis, it's been impressive what they did and how they've responded for the most part.
Why is number 9 your favorite number? Tell me about that. Ted Williams?
Well,
I mean, I don't get it. What is it?
No, it's my wife's favorite number. So she's a beauty. That number 9 is my shout out to her. So
give me an example. Like
she's watching the game. If she's watching, then I say, Stan, I got odds, because I know. Then I can say she's a beauty. That number 9. Now, where that line came from is a song called "Ordinary People" by Neil Young, and it's an 18-minute song on, I can't remember the name of the album, but he's talking about engine down at the railroad tracks, the clean and old number 9, and then in the faint of the if you really listen, you can hear on like I don't know the musical term for it, but a second track of vocals or whatever, you can hear Neil Young say, "She's a beauty, that number 9," and that's where I got that line from.
Was that your first wedding song too?
No, that wasn't it.
Beauty number 9. All right, yeah, that's great. There's something else that's interesting about you, Neil. Your great-great-grandpa played for Oregon in 1920, the Rose Bowl. Is that true?
Not my great-great-grandfather, my grandfather.
Okay.
Just yeah, Neil number one. I'm Neil number three. Neil number one played on the 1920 Oregon Rose Bowl team that lost to Harvard 7-6, and he
And
was a World War I fighter pilot from Eastern
yeah,
Oregon, and he was a straight dude.
wow. And they actually lost because they missed how many field goals?
Did they miss two in that game? I can't remember.
I think he
It's been
said
a while
four.
since.
Four field
Okay,
goals.
I can't remember. It's been a
I
while
know.
since I
You're
read about
so
it.
old. You know what I mean? Oh my
No.
God.
Yep. Neil number two had a heart surgery yesterday. They put 4 stents in his heart, so we're wishing him a speedy recovery, everybody.
Oh well. Send my
Yep.
prayers. Yes.
There you go.
Well, listen, Neil. I mean, it's been fun. All right. No, one more thing. Tell me what you did with Eddie Van Halen back in the days. Come on, man. Tell me that story.
You know what? That's funny. So this was when I was in TV in Hawaii, and I was the weekend assignment editor,
Mm-hmm.
and Van Halen was coming to Hawaii.
Van Halen. Sorry, I said Van Halen. Sorry. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So they're going to play at the Blaisdell, and this is a good memory. But it's been a while since I've thought about it. So I'm the assignment editor, so I have to pick what cameraman is going to go and what reporter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what reporter I pick is me. I'm going.
Okay.
You know. So now I got to pick the cameraman, and I remember Eric Nolder and Fred Asmus were the two guys that both really wanted to do it, and I was going to have to tell one of them no. And Fred is still a dear friend of mine. I picked Eric. I don't know why. Eric was really tall, so he could always get that shot like that. So that we went down to the Blaisdell, that's the center, your convention center where they're going to play, and they were doing their sound check. And boy, I think this might have been the year Gary Sharon was playing, because they play in New Year's, so it was that tour. I'm a little shaky on that. I know they played Honolulu with Gary Sharon, and I worked security, and my security job was I had to just stand in front of the steps so nobody could bother Valerie Bertinelli. I don't know if that was the same story as this one, because it's a little foggy. But anyhow, so we get down to the Blaisdell for sound check. Eddie's not there. It's Michael, the bass player. Why can't I think of his last name? Alex Van Halen, and whoever was on vocals. But I don't think it was Sammy, and I don't think it was David. So I think it might have been. But anyhow, so me and Eric Nolder are shooting it. Fred shows up anyway, so we ended up having a 2-camera shoot of a Van Halen sound check, which I still have on 3/4-inch tape out in my garage somewhere. And I got to interview Mike and Alex about Van Halen. So that's the Van Halen. So I never got to meet Eddie, but I got to protect Valerie.
That's true. Well, Neil,
Yeah.
I think you're the only one that has a VHS in your home right now, do you?
I know. I need a 3/4-inch tape though.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, really old, really old. Before Betamax.
When gas was 20 cents a gallon, right, Neil?
Yeah, exactly. And I had to walk 12 miles to school in the snow, Eddie.
Oh, yeah. And then I love like when you act like a goofball, right? Like, for instance, here's a picture of you right here. Watch this right here, all right? Do you remember you dancing like that? Look at you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was for the University of Oregon. That was a great story that day. That was a recreation of the Animal House toga party for the University of Oregon, and they had a lot of their great athletes there. And they accidentally sent me an invite, so I said, "Oh, I'm showing up for that." Yeah, that was good fun.
So now your sister, I mean, she did work 30 years. Did you get like those classic Air Jordan Oregonducks sneakers?
No, but I got a couple first edition LeBrons in a closet somewhere that I'm hoping maybe it'll be worth something someday.
Yeah.
I got about, I don't know, 10 or 12 pairs of that my little nephew is saying we need to sell, and I'm like, well, let's just hold on to them, and the longer we hold on to them, the more they're worth.
Neil, listen, I would say everyone says great things about you. I have a good friend in Hawaii. His name is Sean Doc Rock, right? And he says, man, my roommate was his sound engineer at one of the stations somewhere. I don't know. But he said, every event I went, and Neil was there in Hawaii, it was like, he was so cool. Everybody loved him. I mean, he's just that guy, man. So, Neil, where'd you get this personality from?
Oh, that's from my mom.
From your mom?
Yeah, she was beautiful soul. And so, it's just a lot more pleasant to be nice than to not be nice. Right. And I think that's, there's, you wish there was more nice in this world. So I can only be who I can be. And so that's who I choose to be. I don't always succeed, but that's who I hope to be. So that's kind of you to say.
So Neil, Lakers have a shot? No.
Wow. I mean, it's hard to bet against LeBron, but boy, they were so out of sorts last night. And Phoenix is not intimidated by them at all anymore. And listen, a lot has to do with Anthony Davis.
Well,
but you heard LeBron. You heard LeBron say, "I'm preparing for that. He's not playing in Game 6." And but it looks like bigger than just an Anthony Davis problem. I mean, there was a lot of just the body language of the Lakers in Game 1 and in Game 5 was awful. Yeah. There was a disinterested look, which was surprising, given it's a LeBron James led team.
And Booker and them are like, we're not intimidated by you guys. We don't care if you're the Lakers. We don't care who you are.
Yeah, I mean, Booker hadn't played well in the first 4 games. Now you got him started up, and Ayton.
Yeah.
I mean, Ayton's playing really well, and Phoenix. They got the mantra. Monty Williams, the mantra. Yeah, that's what my friend with the son said. That's what they got, the mantra. I like that.
Yeah. Well, listen, Neil, I need some luck with my Knicks tonight. Hopefully, I just want them to win tonight, man, at the Garden. I just want to hear that crowd. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the crowd's going to be on their side, and hopefully, hopefully it's a good game. That's what you really want. Like that Laker game was so awful last night. That Blazer game was unbelievable. And, I found myself going like, ah! And I'm not I don't get that, I'm not that expressive of a guy watching a sporting event, but what Lillard was doing and what Denver was doing, that was playoff basketball, Yeah. So I hope you have one of those games tonight. I hope NBA fans have one of those games tonight. Yeah. And I hope for you, because you're a good dude and I love you, man. I hope the Knicks win for you tonight.
You know what? Thank you so much, Neil. Listen, it's been a pleasure. I mean, I'm such a huge fan of yours. In New York, it's late, but when I'm up, I'm like, that's my boy. I can honestly say that's my boy. I got his number.
You can.
I got his email. I could call him and I could talk to him. You know how in LA, when people name drop a lot, like, yeah, I know this guy really well. And I'm like, yeah, call him right now. Well, I mean, I can't call him. I thought you're tight with him. I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But listen, if you're ever in New York, please stop by, baby. You and your wife.
I will.
I'll take you guys out. You know what I'm saying?
That would be an experience worth having. That I know for sure.
Oh, well, you know me, baby. I got you. Wherever you and your wife love, I got you. Listen, don't go anywhere. I'm just going to end the broadcast. Neil Everett, he's on ESPN Monday through Friday, every night. You see him on TV. All right, we'll talk.
Aloha.
There you go.
How's it? Neil Everett here from ESPN and SportsCenter out in Los Angeles. Hey, if you're looking for a good watch, a good time from a good dude, Eddie Mata is where you need to go. Subscribe to all his platforms. You'll be entertained. Eddie Mata's making top plays.